Hello and welcome to the Nova Moon channel. My name is Ali and today I'm very excited to be sharing the second photo reading in my soul contract series, where I connect to the energy of people I'm guided to and ask them a series of questions around their soul contract, what that meant, how they feel about it now looking back, and any lessons or observations they wish to share. Today's subject, as you can see, is Bob Marley, legendary singer-songwriter and activist. As always, here is my disclaimer for this reading. And let's move on. So let me tell you a little bit about the way I approach my photo readings, and then we'll get right into it. So I don't pre-read or research any subject once I've been guided to who I will be reading for. I stick with what I know, in fact more often what I don't know. As I connect and then read, I find that my mind is a complete blank. I've got no ongoing thought processes, nothing comes to mind or reminds me of anything to do with my subject. It's a little like auto writing, so I let the energy come to me and then I type what I hear as it's being spoken or heard. Interestingly, fun fact, when reading for people who don't speak English or even perhaps don't speak English as a first language, I often hear them speaking quietly in their native language, and then there's an English translation spoken over that, and I hear that English translation in my own voice, but it's not spoken as I would speak. And people who have heard me connect and read when I speak out loud have often said to me that I speak in a way that I don't ordinarily, so I will phrase what I say differently, I use different words. It's a really interesting process. Something I would also like to say that you may have noticed in the previous reading in the Soul Contract series, and that was with Lady Margaret Thatcher, is that there are different responses in different tenses, so past and present. So sometimes when the words come through, they'll be spoken to me, written down by me in the present tense, and sometimes they're in the past tense. And what I've come to understand from that is the responses that are in the past tense are about the personality, the person that I'm reading. So in that case of the previous reading was Lady Margaret Thatcher. In this one, of course, is Bob Marley. And those responses that are given to me in the present tense, in my opinion, are about the energy themselves. And so I am a believer that we have past lives, that we have probably all of us, or most of us, let's say, have had a previous life or more previous lives. And I believe that the present tense responses that I have are related to the overall energy. I'm still trying to unpick how I feel about whether the energy themselves has the same traits that they take into each of their lives. That's still something I'm trying to figure out. I'd love to know what you think on that. But that's just to give you an understanding really of this past and present tense that might seem a little bit confusing, and I apologise for that, and hopefully that's cleared it up a little bit. So, Mr. Bob Marley. Before I started his reading, so before I started connecting to him and writing what he said to me, I drew some tarot cards. Those of you who are regular watchers of my channel, thank you so much and hello again, will know that I am not a tarot reader. If I read any cards, it's Oracle, love Oracle. So I'm not an expert at all on tarot. However, for these readings, I'm being guided to use tarot. And so you can see here the 3 cards that I feel give a flavour of the person, in this case, Mr. Bob Marley, and his energy. And they sometimes also give me a little sneaky peek into what may be ahead in the reading. So if we look at the middle card, that was the card I drew for him. That's the Page of Cups, and it's really interesting. So Page of Cups is a messenger, and in this instance, the Page of Cups is the messenger who brings the beginnings of self-love. This card reveals the importance of first being able to love ourselves before we can love someone else, and encourages us to bring love and sharing into our lives. Page of Cups is also someone who feels others' pain, is very reflective and passionate, very curious. And I felt when reading that card and then learning a little bit more about the Page of Cups that really did sum up Bob Marley and also his music. And so there was a lot in his music about loving each other, about community, about connections, about passion. And I felt that was a really good card for him. So then the card on the left was the card that was on the top of the deck after the Page of Cups had presented itself to me, and that card is the Hermit. And what I got from that was that this is a man who thought deeply, who liked his own time and space. He didn't feel the need to share everything with everyone, and he was very private, and that energy came through as well. So, you know, some people who are very passionate and love very hard are often quite extrovert. In this instance, the energy from Bob was about him believing in all of those things, but he was also very private and very much did like his own space. And I took, just to confirm, the meaning of the word hermit quite literally. Then the underneath energy, so that was the bottom card. The card on the right is the Magician card. He was blessed. He was always able to bring what he needed to the fore to succeed in his journey. He definitely had unlimited potential. Now, controversial point perhaps, and I think the more we go into these soul contract readings, the more controversial possibly they will become. His soul contract was short. As we know, he died very young, in his mid-30s, but that was expected. That was what he agreed to when he took the contract. And as a result of that, given that he had a short amount of time on this earthly plane, everything he needed was given to him to be able to achieve what the soul contract was about. And apologies if you can hear in the background the pheasant in the garden. He's also agreeing, I like to think. Okay. So Bob Marley. Why Bob Marley? Why was I guided to read him? Well, I don't profess to know much about Bob Marley. I have, of course, heard his music. Who hasn't? But I wasn't really a reggae fan growing up. I was more into classical music, but that's a whole other story. So I knew nothing about him really, apart from his obvious talent for writing and performing music. I was guided to read for him whilst I was meditating recently. So as always, I asked for any energies that wish to be read to come forward, and I felt him and I saw him. And so here we are. So the first points that came up as I began connecting to Bob were about his life in the music industry. So I connected to his photo, and his eyes don't seem to portray the smile on his face. I don't know if you can see that yourself. He has this big smile on his face, but his eyes, it doesn't quite reach his eyes. And what I heard as I began to read for him was that everything wasn't as it seemed. You have to develop a mask to survive in this business. You have to smile when you don't feel happy, play when you don't want to play, write when you don't want to write. The music industry is a machine, and it takes the soul out of you if you're not careful. So the first question in the series of questions I ask everybody was, what was your soul contract? And this is what Bob had to say. My soul contract was to share the world of activism and what was happening in politics, how people were being treated through music, a medium that most listened to, engaged with, and that would resonate the most. I was angry quite often at what I saw around the world, how people were being treated, good, honest people, people who'd wronged no one, who had little themselves. Happiness and peace should be free, right? Not something you have to pay for or do something for. It's a God-given right to be happy. And not many people were, due to the systems that were controlling them, the politics. I realized that this was my life calling in Jamaica. I played just once and the impact was more than I'd imagined. It was thought-provoking. People started to think about what I'd said through my music, and they had a great time doing it too. And I realized then, being so passionate about everyone being able to enjoy their lives without control, that I wanted to do this all the time. And what I picked up from that was, to be clear, he wasn't saying that he only ever played in Jamaica once. He was saying the first time that he did that, the impact was so great that he realized at that point that this is what he wanted to do, to promote the betterment of everybody, the happiness of everyone, the equality, to point out the things that were wrong and to encourage people to look at those things and to identify what they could do to make the world a better place for everyone. I don't know if I may have just quoted a lyric possibly there. So the next question, what impact did music have on your life and family? And Bob's answer was this: something always has to give. You can't do everything and be everything. I knew it would be difficult to pursue this cause and to have a family waiting at home. Is it fair to expect someone to wait for you whilst you're travelling for months, perhaps years? But I love to love, and family was so important to me. So I tried to balance it. I don't know if I was successful. I did feel very much when he answered this question that he was in fact close to his children. And I think that had he lived beyond the very young age at which he died, that would have become more of a thing. And I really felt that there would potentially have been big family music gatherings. And that would have been amazing. Can you imagine? The Marley family is a talented family. Can you imagine what it might have been like if Bob had lived for longer? Next question. What were your biggest achievements? And Bob's reply was awareness. Awareness of struggles for all people, a deep understanding of the impact of struggle on ordinary people, especially those in my homeland and those of my colour, an embracing of the healing power of music and words, of the power of music and words, how one person can make a difference and multiple people can make multiple differences. And that's when we all come together to fight the system and endemic problems. We can make a change. My biggest achievement, I'm proud of my music, of course, but I'm also very proud of my children, of my family. And then we went on to the next question. So did you complete your soul contract in that very short space of time that you had? And his reply, there's always more to do when it comes to fighting poverty and inequality. It's an ongoing struggle, but I did my part. I was at the forefront of the battles in my time, and I'm proud of that. Did I complete my job? Yes. Would I like to have done more? Yes. But unfortunately, my time was limited. I think I would definitely have done more if I'd had more time. And you will learn this at the end, did 2 lots of questions for this reading. And so when I came back to this reading a couple of days later, he did add to this and he said, I had more to do. I could have done more. But he enjoyed the peace of nature. He wasn't all about people and noise and activity and hustle and bustle and, raising profiles of things and raising awareness about things. He did also enjoy relaxing, sitting back and being. He did know how to do that. I followed on this question and I said, well, what else would you have wanted to achieve? And he said, I would have liked to have seen my children grow up, to see the adults they became and interact with them in that way. I would have liked to have done more for my home country to address the inequalities and problems. And I would have liked to have produced more music, of course, perhaps even write a book. That would have been a cool book, wouldn't it? And so then the next question, how has your soul contract impacted on the world? And Bob's reply, I like to think that I was part of the movement for Black people's rights and equalities. I brought light and joy through my music, which is always going to be there for those who want to hear the messages. And I brought children into the world who've taken up where I left off, who have brought their own thoughts and talents into music, business, and the arts. The family dynasty. Definitely so. And then, of course, the next question, which I ask everybody and is a really interesting question, I feel. Would you have still taken your soul contract knowing what you know now? And Bob's answer was an unequivocal yes. I believe in people living in love and harmony. My contract gave me the chance to help with this. Did I do a lot? I didn't get time to do a lot, but I started conversations. I made some inroads and changes. I highlighted problems, left a catalogue of music that motivates and moves. I like to think my music has carried on my work and influenced others to do other things as a result. I then asked him, okay, so what about this early leaving clause? Perhaps that's not the most elegant way of explaining the fact that his soul contract ended when he was quite young. And he replied, sad. It was part of the contract, so I had a lot to do in a short time, but I did as much as I could. I was as happy as I could be. I set up as much as I could and then prayed to God that the structure I'd left was enough for others to build up and continue. And he'd mentioned God a lot previously, and so I felt guided to ask him about his religion here. He alluded to it, as you will have heard in the last question, and had in previous questions, and I felt it was something that he might want to talk about more. I was close to God, is what he said. I talked to him a lot. I prayed with him each day. People don't know that. My religion and practices were an important part of my life. I knew that God would call me home early, and I was right, of course. I said to you earlier that I had to come back to this reading again a couple of days later, and I asked him this question again. And he said, what's there to say? I spoke to him as I speak to you. He was as real to me as you are. It was like having an additional friend. I always talked through decisions and questions. It helped me to map my way through life. And so I asked him, what do you imagine your life without God would have been like? And he said, I don't imagine, I can't envisage that. God was a constant for me. And so the final question for Bob was, would you like to share a piece of advice or an observation? And I should have known, shouldn't I, when asking this question that I would hear music. And I did. As soon as I asked the question, the music started, and I'm not someone who's very educated in the work of Bob Marley. I should be, but I'm not. But all I could hear was one love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. And it was beautiful. I asked him if he wanted to give me an observation again when I came back to him a couple of days later, and he said this: life is like a rose. It's beautiful. There are many layers. For some of us, our rose never gets much beyond the early bud. For others, our rose hangs on the bush for as long as it can, petals still there, long after others would have fallen. I thought that was really rather poetic and enigmatic. Probably two words that sum him up really well. And so what were my last thoughts on this interview? Well, I really struggled with this. I really struggled getting his energy in one go. You know, with other people that I've read, both in the Soul Contract series and for clients, I generally get the energy all in one go. I'm able to connect and to sit with that energy and to ask questions and, you know, give those answers to those who've asked. But with Bob, goodness, it was really, really tough. It flitted in and out. You know, one minute I was very connected to him and I was hearing his music. I was seeing his lovely face, feeling that glorious, frankly, energy. And the next, he was gone, or he wouldn't answer. And what I was told, what I heard was he was always reticent about being interviewed in life. Now he's happy to chill and enjoy the summerlands. He still has the same view. He enjoys his privacy. He wants his body of work to speak for itself and for others to make conclusions, whatever they may be, as they see fit. He doesn't feel the need to be available, to be a conclusive being. He's happy for people to see elements of him, different sides of him, and to take that as they may. And I think that probably does sum him up. As I said at the beginning, don't research anybody once I know who it's going to be. I don't want to do that. I want to know as little as possible. But I will, after the reading has ended, have a quick punt around on a couple of key points. And I did learn that he was someone actually who I was going to say in real life, you know what I mean, who when he was here, didn't like being interviewed, was very private, and so that does fit. So I feel that's probably why his energy was so sketchy. He wanted to come forwards and say some things to just be heard, but he didn't feel it had to be done on my terms. It would be done on his terms, which is absolutely fair enough. And if that meant that it would take 2 attempts, 3 attempts, 10 attempts, however many, then that's how many it would take. So it was a really lovely short reading, but really lovely to connect him with such a vibrant, such a transformative energy as Bob Marley, the amazing things that he achieved in his very short life, the fantastic music, as he said, the wonderful family, the children who've gone on and done extraordinary things too in their own right. And there we go. That's the end of this reading of Bob Marley. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please do share with anyone who you think might also enjoy it. And if you aren't already subscribed, please subscribe, like the video, and click the notification bell so that you will hear about the next photo reading, which will be coming up hopefully very soon. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.